Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tear, where I've been featuring my personal top 3,000 songs of the rock era from 1954 to 1999. And today I'm up to song number 2568, and that one is Living in the USA by the Steve Miller Band. This was released on, I think, a couple albums of his. It was actually released twice as a single. I'll get into that a little bit later, but it was released on, I think, two albums. First his first compilation album called Anthology in 1972, and then later, I think, in 1990 on an album called Living in the USA, which had several other of his songs. And anyway, yeah, not too much to say about this song. Let me just show you a picture. Here's a band, a picture of the Steve Miller Band. I think a pretty recent picture. They. I'll get into them in a minute, but here's a picture of their lead singer, Steve Miller. This is a lot earlier picture from the '70s, I believe. And I really like the Steve Miller Band. I'm going to get into them later, but I guess I first want to say a few things about this song, Living in the USA. I think it's a really good song. I think I first heard it maybe in the early 80s, even though I'd been following the Steve Miller Band ever since I was a teenager in the 70s. I don't think I heard it until I got to college. And I think he made a video of it, actually, that they featured on MTV around 82, 83. And I remember watching it. It was a pretty cool video. I mean, he had footage of, I guess it was some big cities, maybe New York City. I can't remember what cities, but he had some footage that was speeded up. It was one of those speeded up videos that showed cars moving really fast through the city, probably speed up by a factor of 10 or 20 or something. Kind of cool. And what's funny about it is that there was another video by Herb Alpert called The People Living in the USA, which came out, I think, around the same time, around 1983. And it was almost the same idea. It was kind of weird because it almost had the same title. And it also was a sped up picture. It had all this sped up footage of New York City. And almost looked the same thing. So it's kind of weird. I don't know if Herb Albert plagiarized Steve Miller or not, or if it was just a coincidence. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. But it's a good song. I mean, the song's really it's kind of a commentary about just kind of some of the experiences, I guess. Steve Miller was having living in the USA. American citizen, and I could relate to a lot of what he sings about. He sings, it's not really a protest song. He's singing about the different kinds of people he runs across, the white man, red man, all these different, ethnicities, and we are a melting pot, supposedly. And I'd say it's, if anything, I'd say it's kind of a positive song. Uh, I mean, I guess he talks about some of the frustrations of living in the USA, how fast paced it is, which is, I guess, why he had everything sped up in the video. But he sings about eating a cheeseburger, and I like cheeseburgers too, so why not? I guess he's kind of commenting on our fast food culture and just kind of our fast-paced culture. That was the USA back in the late '60s and early '70s. I think it's going to pot now, especially with Trump. But anyway, enough of that. I don't want to get political here. But that's my commentary on the song "Living in the USA" by the Steve Miller Band. Now I want to talk about the Steve Miller Band. I already showed their picture, and I'm just gonna, not a lot to say about them. They were formed in 1966 in San Francisco, and I lived in San Francisco. I grew up there for about 10 years, from around 1970 to about 1980. I also lived there. I lived in the Bay Area at least during the '90s. So I've lived a good part of my life in the Bay Area. I really like it, and my mom's still there. She's lived there for since 1970, most of her life, and she's good. She's always loved it, and for the most part, I have too. And but anyway, that's enough about San Francisco. So they started out as the Steve Miller Blues Band in 1966. They had that name until 1967. Then they became the Miller Band in 1967. Then finally the Steve Miller Band, I guess, later that year. And I'm just going to go through their hits. They had a lot of hits. They were a very big group. And their first hit is the one I'm featuring today, Living in the USA. That went to number 94 in 1968. Um, and that was followed by Going to the Country in 1970, which went to number 69. And then I guess they had a hiatus for a while. But then their next hit in 1974 was their first number one, and that was called The Joker. That's a really excellent song, by the way, coming much higher on my list. Several of these songs are coming up higher on my list. Then that was followed by You Ain't Nothing But Trash. I never heard that one. Sounds pretty serious. That went to number 51. And then they had a re release of Living in the USA. This time it went to number 49. I guess it never cracked the top 40 either time. But like I said, I think it's a good song, which is why I'm featuring it. In 1976, they had a song called Take the Money and Run, which went to number 11. And that was followed by Rockin' Me, their second number one. Another really excellent song, I think. And then in 1977, they had one of their biggest hits, Fly Like an Eagle. That one just went to number two, just missed the top spot. But it is one of my favorites, maybe my favorite by them. And that was followed by Jet Airliner, which went to number eight, and Jungle Love, which went to 23. That's not to be confused by the one by the time, which came out later. In 1978, they had a song called Swing Town, which went to 17. In 1981, they had Heart Like a Wheel, which went to 24. In 1982, they had Circle of Love, which went to 55. And their third and final number one, Abracadabra. And then that was followed by Cool Magic, I guess sticking with the magic theme. That went to number 57. And Give It Up, which went to 60. And then in 1984, they had Shangri La, which went to 57. In 1985, they had Bongo Bongo, which went to 84. In 1986, they had I Want to Make the World Turn Around, which went to 97. And finally, in 1993, they had Wide River, which went to 64. So a lot of hits for the Steve Miller Band. Really great group. So I feel privileged to have featured them. And that concludes my profile of Living in the USA by the Steve Miller Band. So thank you guys for watching. You guys rock, and I'll see you next time.